So
No,
you were writing your masters
yeah.
and
So
well, okay,
I was
because
writing my master's, and it was lovely because I had this where I would sit in my flat was this lovely semicircular window, and I would go down and I'd go into this little casement and sit there, and I'd open up the laptop, and every time I'd sit down, this ladybug, she would fly down and land on my screen and run around the screen, and then run around my hand and just sit beside me and sit with me. And she was such amazing company as I was writing of an evening. And it got to a point that she was coming so often, and like a little dog, like I'd sit down and would come running to me. So then I was researching, what do ladybugs eat? What do they drink? How to make sure, could leave a good meal out for ladybug. And I would leave little dishes out for her so she could come and drink and eat and stuff. So then every time I'd sit down, she'd run down, nibble on some of like the dried mango I would leave her, and suck on the water in a little tissue because I didn't want there to be too much water. And she would just eat and drink and sit with me. It'd be great. I talked my whole way through my thesis with this lovely little ladybug. They just sat and drank and drank tea and ate dry fruit with me the whole time. It was
it's
fantastic.
perfect study buddy,
Yeah, yes, she was.
and this is how sanity actually look. I would say someone would say these are signs of insanity. I say in my world, in my universe, this is sign of sanity. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I
I had
agree.
something. I have something similar just with when I'm practicing my kung fu in the garden, right? So I'll start practicing, and it was happening when we lived before. So it's not just this area. I would start my practice, and then I will have this feeling that someone is watching me. Right. So I'll look up, and there would be a wood pigeon, like the plum wood pigeon, sitting somewhere like on the roof nearby, and I would be like, yeah, and I would be right, and then I will just keep going, and then I'll look up, and there will be two of them, and sometimes it will be like three or four, and so I'm like, I am actually having students, I have got forget Kung Fu Panda, right? I have Kung Fu pigeons. But then we moved here to the countryside in Oxfordshire, and it's happening again. It's like these are different pigeons. Either they are telling each other telepathically, it's like, listen, she moved from Berkshire to Oxfordshire, you can learn from her. But that's not all. There is this style called bagwajang, and it's like I'm walking like number 8, and I'm walking circles, and it's just like it's like movement like water. And so I had to cut it in our grass, and it's about 8 meters all. So it's like number 8 and a circle around it. And neighbors think I'm totally mad, and that's some strange glyph for the UFOs to land or whatever. But when our window, kitchen window, when I'm making tea, I can see it, and so I am making tea, and all of a sudden I notice that the plum pigeon is walking the bagua. And it's like waddling. And it really just doesn't step on the grass. It's actually walking the bagua. I'm like, Mark, our kung fu pigeons are actually now taking up this style, They are following me, and look, and he came to me the other day. I was like, yeah, I was watching them. They're really walking the bagua.
It's amazing. You have students. You legitimately have students.
I
This
do,
it's
and they
fantastic.
are so diligent.
How wonderful.
Yeah, it's great. So yes, for those of you that are listening to us, that are watching us, we have started our our podcast interview slightly different from all the other ones. This is your introduction. So welcome to the space of personal evolution unlimited. Me, Tadia, Sid Lawson, and my friend here, Kevin Zwierzchaczewski. Did I say
Beautiful.
Zwierzchaczewski? All the way from Kuwait now, right?
Yes, yes. Currently in Kuwait. Yes.
Good. So what I just want to say, some of you might know him already because we have got mutual friends and hobbies. And those of you that haven't had the fortune yet to hear about him, about his fame. He's a bard. He is a poet. He's a musician, a singer, songwriter, He is the spirit incarnate of Lord Byron. He is a dance educator. He's just all around cool guy. He's gallivanting around the world. We have met here in Britain, and then he went off somewhere around the world, and now he landed himself in Kuwait, but originally from Australia, right?
Yes, yeah, yes.
So,
I'm just thinking, like, I should have put on foundation because I'm blushing so much after that introduction.
I made him blush. Good start. So listen, I haven't heard the story how you got yourself to Kuwait, but some people might not have heard of your journey from Australia because that's where you were born, right?
Yes, correct.
So would you
Yes.
like to share with us how you are gallivanting around the
Yeah.
world, like Indiana Jones, all the way from Australia to Britain to
It's
Italy and
it's kind
more?
of, yeah, it's a very sort of strange and fragmented story, I suppose. Like I was born in Australia, but I never really felt entirely Australian, you know. I was never really fully comfortable there. My mum is Italian.
Mhm.
She was born and grew up in Italy, and my dad was Polish. And so I was brought up in a very European household, and uh, very Polish, very very Polish. So you know, some of my favorite foods are of course pierogi and gołąbki
Oh.
and the kapusta. Oh my gosh, I love it. So anyway,
You're making me hungry now.
I know me too. I have to stop. I have to stop. Otherwise, I'll be drooling all over the
Yeah,
screen.
me
But
too. Stop it.
I oh gosh, where to start? Um, I guess I'd lived I'd lived in Australia up until maybe I was 18 or so, and then I started living abroad, moving abroad. I went to I was in Indonesia for a while, in Hong Kong for a while, went to the United States for a while, and to Europe for a while, blah blah blah. And I was going around, but I came back and I uh, See, even I should have taken notes. I should have taken notes on what I did. Essentially, what brought me to Europe, finally, what brought me back was music. Um,
Mhm.
so I I'd never really sort of fancied myself as a musician over in Australia, and uh, but things just sort of came together. That in itself was extraordinary. I taught myself to sing by you know, just doing the housework and stuff like this. It wasn't anything that I really thought much of. But a friend of mine, she said, "Oh, look, I think that you should audition for the Conservatoire of Music." And I was like, "Come on, this is ridiculous. I can't go to the conservatoire. I don't know anything about music." She said, "No, no, no, do it, do it." And actually, auditions closed today. I've already gone and I've spoken to them, and they're keeping the audition open for you for one extra day. So you've got just today to get everything in. So I did my
No
audition.
pressure.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh God, okay, I really have to do this. All right. So I did the I submitted everything and I got invited in for an audition, which was pretty exciting. But they it was either uh, contemporary, so jazz, which I really knew nothing about, well, not really with singing. Um, so I had contemporary or classical. So I went in and I tried for contemporary, and they said, okay, you need to sing a jazz song, a jazz standard, and another song of your choice. I'm like, what on earth do I sing? So I sang uh, New York, New York. Also, because I'm like, what songs do I sing? So I chose the most obvious thing ever, but I hadn't sung it. So I ended up going in and I had to get prepared. And I used to be going to this, I used to be going to this karaoke night in town. So I went. I called them up and I'm like, I need to talk to the lady who runs the karaoke night. And they're like, okay, yeah, yeah, they put her in. I'm like, look, I've got this audition for the conservatoire and I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to warm up my voice and or anything. She's like, okay, okay, don't stress. Just come into the bar and we'll do like a karaoke voice session. Oh, amazing. So my pre-audition was in the karaoke bar with the karaoke hostess preparing me, and she's like, "Have you got the music?" I'm like, "No, no." And she's like, "What songs are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I thought of doing, this New York, New York, and they want me to do another song. So how about Depeche Mode?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's a great choice." Okay, so she then gave me these karaoke backing discs, so you know how bad and tinny and synthy the music is. So I've gone into the
Yeah.
conservatoire, and they're all very serious at their desks. And what song are you going to sing for us today? I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to sing this song by Depeche Mode." Who? "Oh, they're just a band." And it starts. I was like, ding, 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 and I'm like, "Yeah,
You're a
here
rebel.
we go." But what ended up happening, to my eternal surprise, was I got offered a place, and uh, I so I went and I started studying, and that was incredibly exciting. While I was there, I started to meet other musicians and became a little more confident in myself. And I mean, I went back to uni, so it wasn't like my first degree. I was going back and studying, so I guess I had that a little more confidence in myself in what I was doing. Um, and after like a year or so, it wasn't very long, I realized I didn't need a degree in music. What I needed to do was just get out there and make music. And
Yeah.
I got this band together because actually, I mean, the people who taught me were incredible. And one of my teachers was the guitarist from Jerry and the Pacemakers. So he'd had this international career. He was part of this incredible band. So he knew this urge and this desire, and he understood that no, you don't need to have a degree to make music. You just need to, depends what you want out of music, you know. Um,
Mm.
and so I got together this band, and we started playing locally. Then I moved to, and we started, then that kind of it started going incredibly well, much better than I anticipated, and we started then playing around the country, and it was going very well, very well, very well. And then I, in a moment of madness, ditched it all and I moved to New York. And while I was over there, I started performing over in New York. I'm like, "Oh my God, I love this. I love this." But then I got a bit sad and I was missing my band. So I came back and I'm like, "Guys, I don't want to just play around here anymore. I want to take it further." And I said, "So let's just like go on tour. Let's travel the world and see where we end up and what happens." And they all went, "Yeah, let's do it. Why not?" So it was this incredible thing. And things had been going so well that the band was paying for itself, like it would just,
Oh,
so
good.
we didn't have this sense of fear and where are we going to get the money from? What are we going to do? I mean, we still had to work and to generate other income as we went, but we just went for it. And
Mhm.
that's what brought us to Europe. And I mean, I was booking, I was booking gigs, because again, back then, these are the days of like MySpace and stuff like that. And so interaction, it was you were still it was a lot of this email talk and trying to sell yourself directly to people. So I was talking to people and like Australian cultural attaches in places like Turkey, saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, with this Australian band, and we'd love to come over and play." And it's like, "Oh well, there's this festival in Ankara, which I think would be great for you." And we're like, "That's awesome. Yeah, okay, let's go over and play." So this guy who's never heard of us talking, and we're going to these countries that have never really, that have no idea of who we are, playing on these festivals. And it was just crazy. We just were going from city to city and country to country, playing on these festivals with remarkable bands. Like all these, we played here with some amazing musicians, people I never thought would have been possible, but just because we talked it and talked it and talked it and believed it and believed it. And I mean, we worked hard, we worked very
Mm.
hard. We were in the studio every day or every other day, and if we weren't in the studio, we were at least writing and working and arranging. And when we weren't doing that, we were always on stage, and it didn't even really matter the size of the stage. We were just hitting any stages, just to, I don't know, just to keep it really just to keep it fresh and experiment and try out new stuff, which is what
Yeah.
made Europe so exciting, because
Mhm.
there were so many venues, and we hit the ground running. And like I said, we were basically festival hopping. And then our first show in London was at this place called the Clapham Grand, which was amazing. It was like Ming's Palace. It was this incredible 3-story or 4-story, like Chinese opium den palace,
That
with
sounds
golden
wonderful.
dragons. You would have loved it. It was
Oh
incredible.
yeah, sounds great.
And the stage was immense, and the lighting was great, and the people just really got into the sound, and the lighting guys started talking to us. Oh well, yeah, we want you to come back and perform again on this other evening, and now we've got your music, let's sit. And so they started to work on the lighting show with us. So it just kind of spiraled in this way.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it was wild. So I guess that's a very yeah, that's a very long
Rock
way
and
away.
roll still life.
Yeah, that's what brought us over.
And that's
And
Lord Byron, right? We are talking
yeah, that was
Lord
with Lord
Byron.
Byron. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it was great. But what ended up happening was, of course, it kind of, I don't know, everything. No one was expecting what happened to happen, and
Mhm.
it kind of spiraled a bit, and it was both incredibly exhilarating and incredibly frightening. And some of the guys in the band, I mean, one of them, two of them, one of them had never even lived out of home before, and here he was now just racing from country to country, and amongst all of these lunatics, he's like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. I mean, it was incredible. Like my when we got to Europe, actually, my drummer, he was wonderful, but he was I shouldn't say, but he's so stereotypically Australian. The sort of guy you'd expect to see in a little tinny out on the water, in stubby shorts and a singlet, and g'day Kev, yeah, just grab a beer, right? Like, so Australian. It was amazing. And he said, yeah, yeah, yeah. My auntie and uncle have said we can stay with them when we get to England. They're gonna look after us. They're gonna pick us up. And honestly, I didn't know what to expect, because I'm like, okay, well, I know you, and like, I don't really know what to expect. But yeah, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And it was extraordinary, because we landed, and well, actually, my keyboardist got arrested by the border security. But after he got taken away, and once we had dealt with that, and to a point, then his aunt and uncle were waiting for us, and it was amazing. Edward and Diddle,
That's
said yes, yes,
awesome names.
yeah, I know, they were amazing, amazing people, but they were the absolute opposite to him. And they said, oh, well, we've organized a bus for you, because so every band needs a tour bus. So we're going to drive back to the house in the tour bus. And if you like it, you guys keep it and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is incredible. And so our adventures started with the first sort of 2 months or something. We were in the UK. We were we were living in a Tudor mansion in Surrey, and our rehearsal space was a Tudor dining hall, and it was like gallery, and it had tapestries, these old like Tudor tapestries hanging on the walls, and secret doors in the paneling, and it was extraordinary. And Edward
Oh,
and Diddle said, "Well, we've got two young boys growing up. We knew that they're being on school holiday, and we thought, what an amazing experience for them, just to spend one summer of their young lives living with a rock and roll band." So, like, okay, amazing. And it was extraordinary. And when I say Tudor Palace, like, man, it really was. The fireplace was so big, those huge old ones, and you were sitting
yeah.
into the fireplace, which had a smaller fireplace, like, and we're just sitting there, just like going, "Oh my God, what
This is our
happened?
life.
These really relatives?" Like it was, it was
Like,
extraordinary.
ladies and gentlemen, this is called the magical rock and roll
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah, it really was. It was like that, actually, for us for a long time. It was because it was a pure luck. Like, I mean, like I say, we worked hard and we were focused on things, and we threw ourselves into and dedicated ourselves. But it was just pure luck, and every day was just another. How is this possible? How is this happening? This is extraordinary.
Though,
But
you know,
eventually,
given this a charmed life, first of all, you bring it into the pot, you know, the ingredient of charmed life that, that you have got about you. And the other thing is you just went for it. You know, there is just something that the universe
yeah,
responds to, you know.
that's that's honestly the thing, is that when people ask me, "My God, you did this, and you've lived there, and this and that and the other, how?" And the honest answer is that from as long as I can remember, my answer to everything was yes. Like if there was a new experience, an invitation, a possibility to do something, I said yes. Now, obviously, that sometimes got me into some very awkward or dangerous situations as well, and that was
Happens.
great. Everything was learning, but you just went with it for as long as possible, because yes was far better than than no. It meant doing something, meeting people, experiencing things, hearing stories, learning from people, tasting, smelling, seeing. Like it would. I love it. I love it, and it's really kind of defined my approach to life. And that's really why we're currently in Kuwait and in the Middle East, because my wife shares a similar uh, just wonder for the world, and we were we were sitting in London during the pandemic, and I was saying to her, I really feel I feel it's time for me to leave London. Like I love London. I wish to return to London, but I've lived in London long enough. I need to live somewhere else. And
Well,
and
you
and
when you are
somewhere
done
else,
somewhere, you know, you are done somewhere. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And this was it. And she was saying similar. She hadn't been there as long as I, but she was feeling this need to just kind of spread her wing and to just experience more of the world. And she had lived an interesting life as well, because I mean she's a professional ballerina, so she had studied and danced with the Hungarian National Ballet and then the Croatian National Ballet. So she understood that life and that need for the stage and for experience and for going out and just drinking in what you could and experience life. So I remember I was sitting there one morning, and or was it one evening? It doesn't matter. I was sitting there
Oh,
reading something, and yeah. So one day, and she said, "Oh, look, there's this job in Cairo. I thought to apply for. What do you think if I apply for a good job in Cairo?" I'm like, yes,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yes. If you get a job in Cairo, I'm there, like without hesitation. And I said I had this fantasy of just sitting on a rooftop, drinking coffee, reading, writing poetry, and staring at the pyramids. And and she's like, brilliant, yeah, well, we'll make it happen. What ended up happening was she got offered a position in an arts academy um, in Kuwait, which was just completely out of the blue, but because they wanted someone to really come in and really lead on artistic and cultural change and development in the region. And it was too beautiful an opportunity to pass up, like, wow, like in a place where like dance is restricted to males, where men and women, you are not allowed to dance and touching, we had this opportunity to come in and do something really incredible, invited by Kuwaitis to be here and supported by Kuwaitis to be here. Um, it was just too exciting. So she ended up coming over, and then I followed. I went to Athens for a while, and then from Athens to here, and then it was yeah, it's extraordinary. It's what brought us here, and now it couldn't be more different from London. You know, it's extraordinary. It's and the whole region. I love the region, and it feels worlds apart
Mhm.
in many ways, especially when you're cruising through the Saudi desert and you're a million miles from absolutely nowhere, and it's just rolling dunes and camels, and you just, man, where are we and where are we even going? And
Mhm.
you're just going. Um, but equally, it's a 6 hour flight back to London. You know, it's actually not that far. And when you think about like spending so much time in Australia, it's one of the great. I mean, Australia gave me many wonderful things. One of the great things it gave me, I think it gives most Australians, is a wonderful sense of the irrelevance of distance. You know,
Mhm.
so as a 6 hour flight, well, that's nothing because you know when we were in Brisbane, there were some weekends. I mean, as you know, with like Rowaney Festival, it'd be a case of okay, let's pack up and go. Or even if it wasn't a big festival event like that, it may have been let's just go and see our friends from Palit or somewhere, you know. And so you would get in a car on Thursday night and you would drive for 14 hours just to spend
Yes,
2 days, you know.
totally different perspective of distance and space. Yes, yes. I had
Yes.
to when I
Yeah.
came to Australia. I had to do that reshuffling because coming from small Europe where you have to take your passport if you're traveling for 2 3 hours because you will end up in different country.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just it's really extraordinary being here. And the again, it's just one of those things. And I mean, we've been very fortunate because through Tina's work, we really are. She's in connection with a lot of embassies that doing work on that sort of on that scale. So we are the people we're meeting, the experiences that we're
Mm,
having. It's I know that it's very unlike the experience that many people like if you came over to the Middle East, let's say, for example, to teach,
mm,
you would still have a beautiful experience, but it would be a much more reduced experience, you know.
mhm, mhm.
We were well, actually, we were climbing through the Dilmun burial mounds, like 4,000, 5,000 BC in Bahrain,
Wow.
and uh, we sort of come out around the corner and we've bumped into these two people, and they turned out to be the Czech ambassador and his wife. And so we got chatting and all, and then the next thing we're going to these the Czech embassy evenings here. Oh yes, come along. Yeah, we'd like to talk about how we can be part because it's just again over here. The world feels really dynamic and possible. Not that it
Mm,
feels impossible or anything in Europe, but you know, Europe has so many centuries of ritual and all of these layers that you know make
mm,
things like you know like layers of reverence
mm,
and
mm,
you know you think it's an impossible world to penetrate and actually in many respects it is, you know, whereas over here, you know, like Kuwait for example, they struck oil what 70 years ago. So the royal family is only a few generations old, and they're still kind of establishing some of those things. But it also means that they're remarkably approachable. Like
mm,
you know, and it's incredible, and it also means the same for ambassadors and this sort of people at this sort of level, but also the artists here. Like it's so exciting because everyone and the Middle East has been a region that you know for thousands of years, thousands people have been just been crossing paths, coming from east to west, north to south, crossing. So
cross-pollination of cultures.
yeah,
Uh,
it's remarkable then what you you get to sense and experience over here. So in terms of revitalizing us and well
mm,
certainly revitalizing me, um it couldn't have been better. You know, I mean, and to be fair, we've not been here long. Tina's been here, I think, 18 months now, and I've officially been here, I think, 4 or 5, but have been stepping in and out for the past sort of 12.
You have been
But
dancing in between.
yeah, exactly. In and out, in and out. But it's been great because then I go back to I go back to Europe, and because I now work or have been working for quite some time with a studio, a label in music label in Italy, and
Yeah.
and so I'm able to fly. Like, so it's fantastic. There's a direct flight, for example, from Milan, and my
Oh,
studio is in Turin. So from Turin to Milan, it's like an hour and a half. You
that's
know, and
nothing for
so
you. Nothing.
exactly right. You know, so you just
Yeah.
drive, and then you're on a plane, direct flight back. How perfect. So it also means it doesn't even have to impact. And I mean, the pandemic showed us how much was, I mean, it was very difficult, and I certainly don't want to make light of it, but I also know that I was remarkably blessed through the pandemic, in terms of having a very positive experience, in that, like a personal experience. I mean, also incredibly harrowing and life-threatening, but also incredibly positive experience, because during that time, um, I left London for the first time in a long time, for an extended period, and spent probably 18 months of that in Croatia, which is where Tina is from. So which is why I was there. So, and whilst I had surgeries while I was there, it was a remarkable place to recover, to experience. I was surrounded by nature. I had space. We were in Rijeka, so you're on the sea. I mean, the cardio ward that I was in, it was amazing. It was on the roof of the hospital. So from my bed where I was recovering, I would look out, and Rijeka is wonderful. It's kind of like Rio in that it's long and thin and hugging the mountains along the sea, right? And so I would just look out and I would see the bays and the beautiful islands that were just sort of sailing along, and the mountains that wrapped around, and the sunsets were incredible, and the air was fresh, and the wilderness, the wilderness was so close, and it was incredible. It was such a great location for me to actually convalesce as well. Um, so yeah, wait, how did I get onto that? I have this terrible tendency of chasing
That
random
that's
threads that
no, I'm keeping you mad because you said that in some ways it was heading towards that actually everything is possible, that lots of things are possible. I
Yes,
mean, you are in Kuwait, but
yes,
yet you are still keeping doing what you are doing, creating your music in Italy, and
yes.
how the change happened, that actually, I guess where you were heading, that's my guess, that the pandemic also was a terrible experience in one way, and in another way it showed that how much is actually possible what we thought was not possible. That in some ways we were caught in
Yes,
some kind of grooves of thinking or doing things widely in society and maybe even individually. But then, it showed us like there are different ways things can be done. So that's my
definitely.
guess
And
where
and
you
and
were
that's what,
heading.
yeah, no, that's exactly it. That's exactly what it was. Exactly what I was saying. Yeah. I it, it, during the pandemic, I was part of um a conference on dance, dance around the world, and the importance of dance and ballet. It was with the Royal Academy of Dance, but I was hosting these lectures, these talks, where I had a panel of guest speakers, and I'm telling this only because it will become apparent. But these people were amazing. These people had these incredible careers and had lived these long lives, and I'd start to get excited, and Tina was sitting in the room but behind the laptop, And so I get to this point where, because she knows that, I'm one of these, all these threads, and I start chasing, like, it's like butterflies in front of, like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna go this way, and then the next thing I just stop, and everyone stops, and I'm like, what was going on? Like, what was I saying? Who was doing what? So she would sit there, and then she'd just be like, stop. That's enough. Okay. I said, very good. And now, so it was amazing. So she choreographed me, which was great to have the dancer choreographing me. And it worked incredibly well, actually. Her direction, I work very well by her direction. But this was good. This narrowly averted disaster on several occasions.
So I understand that Kevin is a element of nature, a creative element of nature, and he needs a minder that will occasionally just kind of bring him back into some kind of form, so everyone else can actually know what the hell is going on. It's
It's true.
working
It's true.
perfectly. Well,
It's
that's the
true.
creative elements, it's just like you are a force of nature. I think everyone who hasn't met you but have seen you here now understands that by now.
Yes. Yeah, I guess,
And
yeah.
there it goes, like, oh, and this and this and this and
Yeah, but like this, yeah, but like you say, but then being shaped, shaped and guided, then you're like, okay, great. Then you can direct it, because it's a big risk, right? Especially when you're getting carried away with creativity, and you just kind of run off in wild directions, and people go, okay, that's great, but that's totally not where you were going, where you were starting with, which can be, sometimes it can be great, sometimes it can be absolutely disastrous, especially when you're leaving everyone behind who's actually meant to be following in a particular way.
I know. I just like, I had the vision of you ahead in the desert, you were just running and everyone behind you like trying to catch up. But I do understand this because I have to say I have got so many ideas, and I'm like, these are, well, maybe I don't see myself very well from within. I was like, these are great ideas, and this really excites me, and I want to do them all. But then nothing happens because I just totally exhaust myself chasing after all those butterflies. So
Yes,
I
yeah.
I understand that need of the discipline or someone helping you to kind of go from this
it's so
lens to this lens.
it's so massively important, and for me, I find now the thing that works for me incredibly well is I now have to make lists where I can cross things off, because
Yes.
I just have to be directed, because otherwise it's exactly, so you have all these wonderful ideas, but you're exhausting yourself, and you're only kind of touching on this and touching on that and touching, instead of committing to this, because more often than not, when you commit to this and you're working on this, it will impact upon this, and develop it and direct it in different ways anyway. But when you're just kind of touching, yes, it's exciting and can be fun, but for me, I find it ultimately unfulfilling and frustrating, because
Frustrating, yes.
whilst you're touching upon, you don't feel like you're making the progress or the distance that you
Yeah,
truly, what you're
yeah.
aching for, which is why you went into it. But it's such a difficult line to walk, because
Oh,
it's so
because
easy to be distracted by all of the wonderful and beautiful possibilities that are out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because there is just so much richness when you open up yourself to it. That's what you said, when you say yes to life, when you say yes to the adventures, to the world, then it starts showing up. And then you have to and at first you're like, oh, I was hungry and this is a feast. And so different flavors. And then after a while, you're like, yes, but I actually have overeaten here and I have overdone it there. And now I'm exhausted and I'm feeling too full, and I don't feel so that fulfilled by this and that, and I need to kind of find some good structure, discipline, because it was great. I just recently had a session in a somatic session, movement of resetting your boundaries, just like touching your
Mhm.
boundaries, knowing what your shape is at the moment, because it keeps changing. And especially like, yeah, when you're a creative person, it's like it is dynamic all the time. It keeps changing so much because you're just going with the flow, and there are so many currents, and yeah, things are coming in and things are going out. And it was like it reminded me viscerally. Sometimes you have to be reminded viscerally through your body that yeah, I need the boundaries because I was dancing, I was moving in an empty room, and I was using there were few pieces of furniture. I was using the furniture, and the walls remind me that actually I find freedom within the boundaries, the safe boundaries, that I'm happy with those, right? Because usually I am rebel, I'm fighting against boundaries and limitations, and it's just will be always my thing. But then the
Mhm.
realization again, actually I find freedom within the boundaries that I set for myself, and I set them intentionally because I want to create something. Yeah, instead of just being frustrated,
Yes,
fighting
yeah,
against something or for something, or just gallivanting
yeah.
here and gallivanting there after something. Yeah.
But that's incredibly important because by setting those boundaries, exactly as you say, you have the confidence and the freedom to move within those boundaries. And as you explore those boundaries, you can reshape the boundaries and push them out or shrink them in as is necessary for what you need to do.
Exactly.
Because I know, for example, musically, sometimes I'm like, oh wow, look, wait, we could do this, we could do this, and it expands and expands. But then it becomes almost a cacophony, right? There's too many ideas. It becomes
Yeah.
dissonant, and it
Yeah.
becomes difficult to your idea. The purity of the idea becomes lost in all of that sound, in all that noise. It's the same with
It
my writing.
dilutes. Yeah, it
Yes,
dilutes,
it
doesn't it?
dilutes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you really have to you have to pull it back. This is especially the thing that I find with my writing, and I've
Mhm.
been finding it again. It was something that through the pandemic massively developed because I mean I was a big I loved the dandies and the romantics and but everything, but it meant that the language was so archaic and so I mean insanely beautiful, and it's wonderful still, but it meant that even my own style was becoming, and not just in my writing but all things, becoming quite verbose, and it was about learning by actually, because you look at other writers, let's say for example like Joyce or Beckett or who I love, like so many of the Polish writers from who were writing, especially the ones who came out of like the Warsaw movement and stuff during the Second World War, like
Mhm.
Czesław Miłosz and stuff, who were able to take these wonderful romantic concepts, but um, strip them down and make it much more direct, concise, accessible, not
Mhm.
losing the beauty, but actually modernizing it in a way that made it remain relevant.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
these have been incredible lessons that I've had to learn. Again, here, like I'm reshaping boundaries here, and I look forward to reshaping them even further. But like working with Arabic musicians, and
Mhm.
and 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 because we come from such completely different uh, aesthetics, so completely different oral histories.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
um, it's incredible. So again, it's one of those things where I go, all right, cool. Well, you've been doing all this, but now we need to pull it right back in here and work within this space. And when you start and you're going, yeah, okay, yeah, I can feel it in this space. It's really, I'm getting this groove, right? But let's sort of push it out here and push it out there and see what we could. No, that's gone a bit wrong, a bit. I haven't quite
Yeah.
understood the concept. Let's pull it back in. It's and I love it. I love it's an exciting and dynamic
That's it.
experience, as it should be. And I'm glad. And I mean, ultimately, that's what I was looking for. Again, I needed that reinvigoration, creative
Yeah.
inspiration, um, and I'm getting it, and I love it. I mean, who knows where we'll be next? I actually I really don't mind where we end up going.
Where it takes you next time. But that's like brilliant, because you said, you were feeling that you needed to start moving into another space, or within another space, to get the invigoration. And that's when I was just thinking, you're saying, yeah, I'm in a different I'm in a different container, in a different culture. And it's almost like it resonated there for me, because I was, when I went to China, from the Western culture milieu, I went to something totally different. And also I already had the connection there. It was different living there, because it's almost like that culture, being transplanted into a totally different culture, it starts making different shapes in your mind. If
Yes.
it makes sense, yeah. And it's opening up the door and opening up new doors and opening up new space within you. And so it shifts. I always say it's almost like, when we were kids and there was the kaleidoscope, that was
Yes.
making the shapes, and you do this and it goes click click click, and you have got totally different picture. And that's just what I love. And you need that. I think if you're a really creative person and you need this kind of spark within you, you need to do this whenever it calls you, when you start feeling that this is not happening anymore. I'm settling into something known, and there is not the fire, or the spark, or yeah, I'm just stuck in a groove and I need something else.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, it's been really physically demonstrated, for example, when you say find that new shape through like even just learning Arabic letters. It's training yourself, or not even necessarily training, but exposing yourself to those different shapes, those different patterns and modalities, and allowing yourself just to go with it and to experience it. Because I mean, all of it is it's all interrelated anyway. It's all
Mm.
interlinked. Like what happened in ancient Greek philosophy and everything was transported to the Middle Eastern universities, and when Europe effectively collapsed at that point, the European ideas were kept alive in Eastern tradition, and then they were brought back through into via the Middle East into Italy, which then rediscovered the
Yes.
ancient world, and then we had this beautiful new Renaissance, and it's even in this whole region, it's this cyclical vibe, everything is
Mm.
circular. It's all feeding into one another, and again, it's for me what's incredibly refreshing about it is both how spectacularly different it is, and yet so familiar in certain aspects as well, because
It
it is
is.
this ongoing shared history, and
Mm.
reinterpretation of shared histories too.
That's
Is so
it.
yeah, very much so. I definitely feel that, and I think it's crucial to be uh, just to, well, I guess as I've already said, just to be open, just to be allow oneself to be as open as possible to, and it's kind of hard to describe, isn't it? Like
Mhm.
for me, I can describe it this one way, and people may be listening going, that just sounds ridiculous, and there's nothing concrete I can grab hold of, because I guess unfortunately it's the way the way I see it, and the
When you are
way.
experiencing things, it's hard to put it into words and concepts sometimes, because it's a visceral thing. It's that, insubstantial things, and at the same time it's visceral, but put it into your words and people will find their way. Go on.
Yes, yeah, no, completely agree, completely agree. So yeah, it's a wonderful experience at the moment, and uh, actually, I had a beautiful on uh, Tina organized it again. I mean, honestly, she's just awesome in terms of having found this team. So it was World Poetry Day, and she organized for me to in Kuwait City to give this lecture on poetry, and it was wonderful, because of course then I started to, I gave this lecture, but from very much from my poetic background and perspective, from what I understood, and I approached it from sort of the romantics and this sort of vibe, and then we went into, but to make it more relevant to an audience over here, we moved into, we had a look at Arabic poetry. But it was incredible, because then what we ended up doing is it became this big discussion on translation, and they were working with my translations, and then they were teaching me in the lecture how, you know, what certain grammar points or why certain words or things were chosen to create particular sounds and styles. And it became this incredible discussion, and then everyone was just writing poetry, and people who were had just come along. We were sharing, oh, I'm not sure, I'm a bit, we're scrawling this beautiful poetry, and like it was this incredible experience. It's just, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So we've been fortunate. We've been moving around, as I say, in the region, and meeting artists and working with different people, dancers, calligraphers, sculptors, painters, you name it. But in Kuwait, because again, Kuwait is very much a crucible, like it's a real melding pot, even though in some aspects it's artistic, well, not artistically conservative, it's socially conservative, but there's a lot happening, and it's happening below the surface, and there is really remarkable things. But so people come here, and they come from all aspects, because it's also one of those states that has sort of a sympathy for Sunni and Shia, whereas at certain other states are, you know, opposed.
There are, yeah, conflicts. Yeah.
So here, but then in Saudi as well, we've been having these experiences, and in Oman, which is just profoundly beautiful place, and Bahrain, just it's been, and in Egypt, I mean, my gosh, the Egyptians, they're remarkable. And actually, you know how I was saying, if Tatina, my dream, yeah, I'll sit on the roof. So yeah, but she made it happen. So we ended up flying over because she was invited to to lead classes at the Cairo Ballet, the Egyptian National Ballet. So we went over, and yeah, it was perfect. She found this place where that is quite literally what I spent my days doing, like sitting with my coffee, with my book, looking at the Pisa pyramid, the pyramid. And it was mesmerizing. If anybody wants the name of this hotel, I would I'll give it to anyone. It was like, I think it was called Cheops, but it was incredible. It's right there in Giza. It's several hundred meters from the Great Pyramids, and you're just sitting there, and you're just like, wow.
I want this moment. I'll get the address or name from you, and we will put it under the video, so everyone else who is craving this moment can have this moment.
Because it was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And Egypt is one of those countries where, again, it's quite incredible when you see the disparity between the wealthy and the poor, and just the sheer volume of poverty there as well. But that it gives it this incredible sense of danger and potential, and it's somewhere I really felt myself very alive. It's Cairo. I mean, I can understand many people may not get along with the city because it's pretty insane place, but honestly, it's just such a wild experience that I would recommend anyone to go there and to experience, and just to be amongst that ancient world, and just see how it feels, how it speaks to you. I loved it. So it is great. So we're exploring this region a lot, still close to Europe, so still able, and I mean, the internet is just, it provides, I mean, look at us, right? It provides us with, you know, these incredible opportunities. Like
Britain, Kuwait, you know.
Yeah, right.
Internationally,
It's incredible. It's incredible. And it's just it's lovely knowing and being able to trust confidently in that sense that possibility, like possibility is ongoing, and the things that you have been working towards and establishing previously, regardless of distance, are still possible to keep going. There are, of course, certain things that are important to be physically present for, of course, right? And it's nothing beats, for example, being in a room with a bunch of other poets reading poetry, or being in a live music venue and experience. But there's time for that, and there's time for everything. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I had to get out of London, because I had massively siloed myself, right? And I was fortunate, because for a while I had been working in Italy, with music in Italy, and actually also because the musical project that brought me to Italy in the first place, I mean, it wasn't Lord Byron, it was this other project which brought musicians from Sweden, from Norway, from France, actually also from Argentina. So it was this incredible, just this massive sort of coming together of musicians from all over the place, and it was wild too. You know, it was because I remember it was I'd formed this little band over there, and I wrote to them, sent them an email saying, oh hey, what if I come over on this date so we can have this rehearsal, and then we'll play these couple of days, da 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 da. And my bass player, she wrote to me and said, that'd be great, but I can't on that weekend, because I'm going to be in the studio with Therion. And I said, like, you mean like the Therion, the band Therion? And she's like, yeah. Like, oh my God, I love this band. They're back in Australia. I have all of their albums. I had posters on my walls, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh, I'll talk to the guys and see, you know. And I get this email a couple of weeks later, was saying, oh, hey, I've listened to your music, and I think that you'd be great for part of this project. So would you like to fly over and be a part of it? I'm like, are you kidding me? And yes,
Prince
oh my
Charm
God,
life again.
times, yeah. You know, so I went over, but it was great because it just, again, it opened up so much so that, like, I mean, on my subsequent albums, I co-wrote, like the last album I co-wrote with the pianist who I met through that project, who lived in Naples, and then the bass player was from Sweden. You know, like it actually broke open what I was doing, and how I saw my own music, and also how I was holding on to it, because I know that, for example, when the project first started to fall apart, I was terrified, and because we'd been doing so much, it's a truly intimate experience, right? Like, you know, you being in a band, it's great. Like, you're sharing everything of yourself, and on top of that, you're traveling around the world with these people. Like, you know everything about each other. It's so
Your
so when the
family.
band, you
Your
are, you
creative
absolutely are.
family, yes. And you have a baby together too, you know.
Yeah, you are, because you're actually creating
Yes.
something together.
It's so
And so when
intimate
it
too.
starts to fall apart, it was this, I mean, I went mad, I went crazy. It was this desperate sense of loss. Like, I'm breaking
Yes.
up with 4 people all at once, and I can't understand. Like, it was just this insanity. And the more I held on to it like this, I was squeezing the life, what life remained out of it. I wasn't letting it flourish, and I nearly killed it off in my desperation to make it work and to keep it alive. And so this, and it happened at the right time, this invitation to come over, and it just spun things out and blew things open, which again was an incredibly important lesson that I had to learn, which was, because, I mean, we had done everything ourselves. We had self-managed, we had self-promoted, we had gone you know, everywhere. Well, not everywhere, you know, but we've gone many places, and,
You did.
but we'd done that ourselves. So you can understand there was a sense of like jealously guarding something, you know, protecting it,
Oh,
and not realizing, wait a minute, you can actually kind of let it be and let it flourish and let it grow. So that was an incredibly important lesson that I learned, and it just it opened into remarkable new possibilities in incredible new directions. And so yeah, I've been again, I've been lucky. There's been, I know that I've sort of been telling the story in a scattershot sort of, anyone trying
it's
to, if you try
perfect.
to get off ground.
Listen, that's easy. There is you, there is me in this talk, but there is also your story, and it tells itself through you. So yeah, and it has got its own timing. As a creator, as an artist, you know that there is also always the third person or the third being in
Yes.
every team, and that's the project itself, and it has got its own timing and its own demands. So it's like if you think you are driving and controlling everything, no, you're mistaken, because
No, it's
you also have to kind of let the story and the project does its own thing. And sometimes it's like, "Whoa."
yes, oh, completely. Oh yeah. Actually, it was really nice because one of the things why I loved my last album so much was because it was exactly like that, and it had its own life and its own journey. But what everybody else brought to it, when I've gone back and listened to it, it's not out of a sense of vanity to listen to my own self or anything, but I'm constantly in awe and inspired by what all of the other artists brought to that project, how they gave it a life and a depth that I could never have given it. I could never conceive. And they created something that is it's better than I dreamt it could be. And if something that you create, you know, can maintain that sense of wonder over you, I'm really proud of it. It makes me very happy to know that I still feel that, because I listen to other things that I've done, I'm like, the production on that wasn't so hard, and we should have done this, and that, you know, always picking apart. But that, because of the freedom that it was given to grow and to develop, um, uh, and allow the vision of other people to influence its development as well. It was just, yeah, just breathtaking, which is why I'm really looking forward to things over here. I mean, the first thing that I want to do over here is to um, try to re-record, to arrange some of the songs I've already written in a Middle Eastern style. Well, I
Oh,
say Middle
cool.
Eastern. That's yeah. It's
Middle Eastern influenced. Yeah, yeah, no, I understand.
yeah, Middle East,
That would be cool.
exactly, because one of the musicians who I work with over here, who he's Syrian, right? And another guy, he's Lebanese. So of course there are massive differences, right? Yes, there are some similarities and there's meeting grounds, but so when I say Middle Eastern, yeah, I'm talking blanket statements. But you know, it's just incredible. So and what they've been teaching me, and about, you know, just even just different scales and the way to create sounds in different way. So I'm looking forward to, hopefully, you know, that well, just to seeing what we're able to do.
What is possible. And that's what I just love what you're saying here, and I would like to highlight it because it's about the co-creation. Of course, we have to create. We have this kind of move within ourselves, or this need to create. Some of us have it through different media. Some have it like not so strong. Some just have to live through it, or make it their life. But we create individually, but then when we step into the shared space and we co-create with other people, as you say, is like you would have never thought of it. You bring your part, they bring their part, and then you create this new thing, this new being that has got its own life. So it's like you're like parents and co-parenting, and you are the fairy tale midwife to something that comes out of it, and you can never envision and you can never force what is going to be, because there is always that space where you can't go into it. Just grows itself, and then you are so surprised, and that's great that you go back to it and you hear it again, and you hear all the nuances, all the new angles, and you're just enjoying it. It gives you joy, and I think the joy is important too. So the co-creation, the kind of alchemy of you have the pot there and you each throw in the ingredients, it's like it's
Yeah,
magic, and then
but
something comes out.
that's you're exactly right. This alchemy, what you're putting into it, and two things you said about like the alchemy and the joy, and
Mm,
this is definitely the thing. Like for example, why do I write? I write because I have an uncontrollable urge to do so. It's an essential necessity. But interestingly, especially with my poetry, it's become a really important way that my wife and I communicate.
mm,
So I sometimes find it, I watch all these interviews of people like David Bowie and other sorts of people, and I wish that I could be so eloquent and informed. But when I start talking, I get carried away with emotion, and it all comes into a jumble. And like we saw before, I need anchoring. But when I'm given the opportunity to process and distill it, what tends to happen is those thoughts come out through poetry. And so
mm,
I'm able to write, and it is my condensed feelings and analysis of whatever's happening and what I'm feeling.
mm,
And it's incredible, because then I will I will give those things to Tina to read, and then she will actually go through, as well as she could, because how well she knows me. She will go through a process of, first of all, she'll just experience it and allow herself to experience and what the words are saying. But then she'll also analyze, and then we will
mm,
discuss, and it allows her to actually understand me in a way that is a very deep and intimate way that I can communicate. And she can go, okay, great, I understand where this, and do you mean this? And then it's this dialogue, this discussion, this
mm,
communication between us. And honestly, why do I do what I do? Poetry wise, I can genuinely say that I write because I have to, but I write as much for her as I do for myself, because
mm,
of this communication that we have. I have no grand designs or ideas that, oh yeah, yeah, I want to be a Nobel laureate or any of this. No, I want to sell. I want to be on the New York Times bestseller list. Okay, yeah, great, all very nice, but that is not the purpose. The purpose is, in fact, is there a purpose? If there is a purpose, it's
mm.
simply because it simply happens.
Live it.
Uh,
I love what you said, because it's about the everyday life, about taking the art and put it into living and live it and use it. Because that was one of the things that I learned on the mountain in China. It's like you can go there and you learn all these amazing things and the internal alchemy, all the kung fu. But then you leave it there if you don't take it with you to everyday life, and then you use it and you actually live it, and it enriches your everyday life and your communication with other people, and your how you relate with everyone. So basically what you are saying is like it's art of life and life of art.
yes, 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 and because it's another level of communication. And a lot of people, I know people say to me, um, I I don't listen to lyrics in songs, so that yeah, I don't really care for lyrics. I'm like, lyrics are so essential, they're so important. Or oh, I don't like poetry, and oftentimes a lot of people don't like poetry because their only exposure to poetry was like year 10 high school literature, and it was some completely irrelevant stuff that they were given and had to analyze in the driest, most unemotional and non-romantic way possible.
Nothing
And
touched inside, you know. Nothing
exactly,
stirred
exactly,
inside. Yes.
exactly, right. And so, yeah, some people it's not their form, but it doesn't mean that they can't appreciate it. And it's something I wish so much, and it's something why I feel truly uh, blessed to be here, to be a part of, is this opportunity to facilitate the artistic desires within a whole culture and a community of people who want desperately to express themselves. And they do. Like, I mean, my gosh, like I said, the art that I've seen. And then sometimes you go to some of these little secret parties and get-togethers, and you see, like, my gosh, we were invited to this one evening, and it was downstairs in this basement, soundproofed, all quiet, and everyone was just in there, guys, girls, all together, but just sitting around talking. Had the shishas. Everyone was pulling out instruments, playing, singing together, dancing. It was so beautiful. It was a genuinely beautiful evening, and what a wonderful thing to see and experience, and to see the joy and the desire in those people, and to be part of something. I mean, Tina is leading on this. This is all Tina. I'm just here for the ride. But to be a part of that, and to see that it's and to know that there's such potential and such desire, it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful thing. And we it's the sort of thing we often take for granted.
Yeah.
Especially the way we consume art these days. And especially with digitally streaming music, it's something very mechanical. Okay, I need noise in the background, so I whack on a random playlist and it just plays and stuff. And you're not even necessarily engaging with that music. That the art of the album has been neglected somewhat. Not that I'm disdaining digital music or modern music at all. No, I think it's extraordinary, but it's just how we really do very much take things for granted. And I think I think it's also something. Sorry. I think it's also something I would love to even return to Europe to do again, similar to what we're doing here, because for me, I love the beauty in life. I love the beauty that surrounds us. I love, like, that. That's what I mean. I love life. It is so full of beautiful things and remarkable things and simple beauties that are so incredibly enriching and fulfilling. And too often, the lives that we lead because we're too much at work, or we're not at work, so we're so desperately stressed about money and just basic survival and all of these sorts of things, and we get robbed of the potential to love, to be open to that love, to that joy, to that potential for art. And art, I mean, art is always the first thing to be sacrificed.
It's viewed as a luxury and not a necessity, but
Yeah,
we realize we need it. It's a necessity because it makes us feel alive. It feeds that it's insubstantial thing within us that is so necessary for life, because if it's not fed, then you are feeling like you are in a cage slowly dying from within.
Yes.
Yeah, and what you described about that party, for example, in that moment you feel connected, fully connected, and you feel alive. You feel the fullness of life, and you feel the beauty. And it's not nothing like extraordinary and big, and these fireworks. No, that's just the beauty of just the ordinary, extraordinary moment.
Yes. And being given this, one of the things that I love over here too, because so for example, we can't be openly affectionate out on the streets, but but that's, you know, people, oh, that's terrible. No, it's actually, it's quite fine and it's quite beautiful because it generates that longing and that desire in the same way, like at that party, because of the situation and even certain events that Tina organizes. If you attend, you hand over your phone before you're allowed in, because this stuff can't be filmed or photographed, and you can't risk it getting out. And it's so wonderful to be put back into these social situations, which by necessity divorced from social media and the potential for record keeping. You just get to experience it and take away from that what you take away. It's so humanizing, you know. It allows you properly to re-engage with what is genuinely important. And as you say, those small beauties that it doesn't need to be for Instagram or whatever, you know. It doesn't need to be for that. What it needs to be is just what it is. It just needs to be how you take it in, how you how it ferments within you, and the richness that you take away, the lessons that you take away, the experience, the memory, how it shifts you and impacts upon your perception of the world, how it changes you.
The
You know,
nourishment and enrichment, yes.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, actually, that's like a difference between the fast food that you can get on every corner, and then
Yes.
that loving, lovingly made homemade food that you make with the people that are with you in the kitchen. And what's happening? It's not just the physical ingredients that go into it, So, and then you feel nourished on so many different aspects. So it makes total sense to me. Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I mean, like you will be bringing so much, is as there's just so much happening, so much cooking.
Yeah.
So I was so looking forward to what will be coming out of all this experience. And I have already in my head, when you write your biography, I have already 3 titles for your biography.
Oh,
On
wonderful. Write them down. Write them down. I'd be
I'll
very
write
keen.
them
Because I've got one title for my biography, and it's so remarkably disparaging of myself that I probably shouldn't use it. But so I won't share it now, just in case I actually ever do write it, and and I think I will use this. But it's so yes, write them down. I'd be very
over.
interested in those titles.
It's like,
But
yeah, it's like.
but that in itself, that's important, because then that's going to potentially reframe. Because as I say, if I've got one which is, it's a bit of a joke and it's a bit disparaging, that in itself frames how you see yourself and how, you know, what you're putting out there. So yes, I'm looking forward to looking forward to
It could either be the title, or it could be titles for some of your chapters, you know.
oh
So
yeah,
I'll write them
absolutely.
down. I'll keep
Yeah.
them for you. And
Please do.
listen, our time just flew past. I mean, we totally stepped out of Kronos into Kairos, totally different space, which I was expecting anyway. And I just so utterly, completely, absolutely enjoyed it. Exactly
Oh,
as I knew it was going to be. So
it's
thank
been
you
a
so
joy
much.
for me. Oh no, no, thank you. Like for me, it's just tremendous. I mean, just to be able to spend a couple of hours with you, just talking, hanging out again. Like I missed this. I've missed
I
this.
have I
So
have too. It has been overdue for, because it has flown the time like this, and it has been a while. So I was going to say I would petition for another one if you have time and if you are so inclined.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's make another
Absolutely.
party.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So it'd be great. We are creating this connection, this how we call bridge between Britain and Kuwait.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But the whole idea like behind your podcast, it's so beautiful. And it's
Thank you.
as a project, it's something I'm excited about, and I love how all of these lives, these creative perspectives, these as I say, just these lives being pulled together, and this opportunity to make like a reservoir of experience that we can listen to and draw on, and take away whatever you. But I think it's a beautiful thing. So
Oh, thank you.
thank you for asking me to be a part of this, because I feel I genuinely feel very grateful and very honored
Oh,
that you
thank you. And I feel
thank you.
honored that you accepted. And I always just said about this podcast, I actually haven't planned it. It came to me. It's coming through me. It's I'm just here to create a space and to connect the ideas and the people. And as I said, it's like there are certain people that I'm like, oh, I just want to spend time and I just want to talk and I just want to kind of exchange ideas. And it's just so much richness is such a gift. And then I just want to share it with others because, it's just like cross-pollination, these amazing talents, lives, gifts, amazing people. So it's all happening through us. So thank you so much.
Mom, the pleasure is truly mine. Thank you.
So I hope that all of you that spend the time here with us enjoyed it as much as we did. And I hope you will be looking forward to the next one. So thank you and see you soon.